Good afternoon. It's Betty Shan again. I hope you're having a blessed day. It's a nice day here. I was out watering my yard and the wind got to blowing, so I turned my water off and I decided I'd do something else a while, and maybe late this afternoon I'll get to water some more. But anyway, I want to thank all of you that have signed on with me, and I want to thank those that haven't but like to enjoy watching them. I'm glad you've joined us too. And today it seems like it's a wonderful time of the year. Kids are getting ready now to go back to school. And I know some of you mothers are looking forward to it as much as the children are, that you can get your children back in school and have a little free time to yourself, or at least give you some time to catch up on what you got behind on while the kids has been home this summer. But I think about back when I was getting ready to go to school and when I was getting my kids ready to go to school, the excitement of just even having a new spiral notebook or a pencil or a pen. Now they don't do that. They have to have a tablet, one of these electrical things they plug in to use at school. But I do remember getting excited about school because Mother always seemed to be able to go buy us a pair of brand new shoes and maybe a new dress or two. And boy, we was excited because we got to wear them new clothes to school, and we was going to have a new teacher, and everything was just going to be the best year there ever was. And I did enjoy school. It was an exciting time in my life, and I remember that we got one of our little girls ready for school, and she went to school for a few days, and she come home and she said, but she was talking to me and she kind of got quiet. I knew something was bothering her, so I got to quizzing her to try to find out what was wrong with her. And I said, what is the matter? She said, Mama, I just wished I was like that little girl at school. I said, how's that, Amiris? And I asked her the little girl's name, and it just so happened I knew the little girl's parents, and I knew the little girl. And she said, she's rich. And of course, I knew that the little girl wasn't rich. You know, they wasn't poor, but they wasn't rich. And I said, how can you tell she's rich? She said, Mama, she don't just have one pen. Said she's got 2 pens that she can carry to school and use as she needs them. She's about the 3rd grade. So I went in and I went to the back part of the house, and I'll come back out and I handed her another pen. And she looked at it and her eyes got so bright and big. She said, now I've got 2 pens. I said, well, does that make you feel rich? Oh, yes, Mama, I'm rich now. Said, I've got 2 pens to write with. It's just amazing to me to watch children as they grow, and the things that impress them and the things that makes them happy. Sometimes it takes the least little thing to make your children happy. They don't have to have everything in the world, and they don't have to have the top of the world. It just takes something to make them happy sometimes. And you have to quiz them. You have to find out. When they come in all down, you need to find out what they're down about. It might be something you can solve and make them like school that much more. And I remember as a child getting to go to school and loving to read. I tell you, I've been around the world as a nurse, and I've probably never left Carlsbad at the time, but I got to get books and read about nurses in all kinds of countries and foreign places. That was exciting to me. I read every book I could on a nurse. I had a book all the time ready to read. But I never did turn into a nurse, but them books was good for me to read just the same. And I think about how I learned to read, and how that when we was in the 2nd grade, one of our assignments was that we had to learn to read good enough to make a record for our parents for Christmas. And I'll never forget, I worked hard at it. I worked hard at being able to read because I wanted to make a record for my parents. And what it was just a little bitty red record. I don't know whether any of you remember that or not, but I was in the 2nd grade, and my teacher was Miss Preston. And She wanted us to learn to read so we could read and not have any stuttering or stumbling around on our words, so we could read this story to our parents and make a record. And I'll never forget, I got to make a record. And I was so proud of that record, because not just because I got the record and they made the record, but I got to read and my parents could hear me read. And if it had been me, I would have kept that record. Now, what Mama done with it, I'll never know. Probably just ended up throwing it away. But I remember making that record and being so excited about it, because I was learning to read and my parents could hear me reading. And then I remember that I remember a story that we read in school when I was about second, third, fourth, maybe grade. It was called The Boxcar Children. And that just excited me. That was one of the best books I had ever read, one of the best books in the world. And I wanted my girls to have that book. So I got out looking and finally got a hold of a book warehouse where I could order books from. And they had The Boxcar Children. And that's one of the things that I have in my trunk today, is I have got the Boxcar Children book hid in my trunk. So someday they will get that book out and say, Mama went and bought this book because she read it, and now I'm going to read it to you. I want them to have the Boxcar Children book to read. And I think the reason that book meant so much to me was the fact that my grandmother, Granny Burkham, Clara Burkham, her dad worked for the railroad. And her mother passed away when she was a little girl. And she told me about being 14 and her brother was 9 years old. And I believe this is one of the reasons I love my Grandma Burkham so much, is because she took time to sit down and tell me some of the things that went on in her life, that a lot of them is unbelievable, but I know they happened because my grandma told me about it. But she said that her grandpa, or her daddy, had to work on the railroad. That's how he made his living. And said they had to live, they'd take them all over the country when there's laying new tracks and things. And the kids they lived in a boxcar because that was their only place to live. And it was out in the country sometimes, and there wasn't no motels or anywhere for him to keep his kids. So he had a boxcar that everywhere they went, they pulled that boxcar, and that's what they lived in. And she said, Betty, I remember having to cook meals for my daddy and my little brother, Uncle Clarence. His name was Clarence Winters. And she said, we would pull that boxcar up and I'd have to cook. And she said, I was so short that I could reach up to the stove, but said when the pot was hot, very high, said I couldn't get down in the pot to stir the pots. She said, so I'd pull a chair over to the wood stove, and said I would stand there and cook my supper, or cook whatever I had to cook, whatever Daddy supplied me with to cook is what I cooked. And anyway, she told about a lot of that, that when she lived in that boxcar. Well, when I read The Boxcar Children, I could just imagine my grandma being one of them kids in that boxcar. And life is so exciting, but books can be an opening to a brand new world for you. And so school is very important. And I know that you think it's important for your children too, because we all work to strive to make our children a little bit better than we were. Not better in some ways, but better in knowledge and knowing things. And we want them to have a better education and better opportunities than we have. And in order to do that, encouraging them to read and to learn math and do things they need to do helps them in their later years. If they get behind at the first of school, they stay behind. It's hard for them to catch up. And but anyway, I remember the Boxcar Children and the stories that come out of that inspired me, that even though they didn't even make the book when my children started to school, I found one at a publishing house and I got it and kept it for my children. And there's things that you need to remember and you need to bring out to your children that happened to you while you were young. And one of the most exciting things about going to school was getting my new pair of shoes and having new clothes to go to school. Not that I was all that interested in clothes, I just never was one that was really wrapped up in clothes. But it was exciting because everything was new. I was starting a new year. I had new pencils, new Crayolas, and boy, I didn't want nobody using my Crayolas. I wanted to keep my points on my Crayolas just as long as I could keep them. And I just think back of them times, and they were happy times for me. And we can make them happy times for our children. And today, take time out to sit down and talk to them and explain to them why they're getting an education and why we sacrifice for our children to go to school so their life will be so much easier than our life was. Not that we didn't have a good life, we had a good life, but we do want it easier for our children than what we had it. And so today, think of your children, think of school starting. You mothers relax and enjoy the time and the seasons of your life, because someday this will be over too, and you'll wonder where them little children went to, and you're going to wonder, did I teach them what I should have taught them? Did I encourage them to read? Did I encourage them to do their math? Did I help them get through school? And today, you just keep your chin up, live for the Lord, and go with God.